Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hey, hello, my name is Meg and we do crafty things here. So if you like crafty things, please do consider subscribing. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and tuning in to another video. So today we're going to do something fun. We are going to knot a Halloween wall hanging together, like a little wall hanging. And we're going to do it knot along style. So this is going to be real-time knotting where I take you through the whole process. So first things first, we're going to start with a kitchen shish kebab skewer and some Aunt Lydia's Fashion 3 crochet thread for our base strings. Now we're going to be doing this really cool poison apple pattern. It's off bracelet book 54966. And if you are looking at the pattern, it is 30 strings wide. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my base strings. As you can see, this base string, it's about the length of the actual shish kebab skewer. I figured that should be a perfect length for this pattern with a little bit excess. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut 15 of these and fold them in half as we add them onto the stick. So I have sped through the cutting because otherwise we'll be here for eternity. But I do get a lot of questions about how I attach strings onto the stick. So this is how I do it. I fold my string in half and then I split the strings and kind of bring it around into a lark's head knot. I'll do this for all the strings here so you guys can watch it. I do it a couple more times slower as well so you guys can see it more in depth if you do need that assistance. But in the meantime, I am going to talk about a little more about what we're going to do. So early on in this whole global situation, I floated the idea of doing a knot along where it was either going to be live videos or just a series of real-time knotting videos where we tackle some patterns kind of as a group and everyone can work on the same thing and it just be a little more like community conversative where because everyone's at home and stuff. So that's where this root idea kind of stemmed from. But when I looked at my analytics, in my time, it looks like most of you are online and viewing my videos in like the late morning, early afternoon, kind of like between 11 a.m. and like 3 p.m. And I'm always at work that time, except for on the weekends. And then on the weekends, that's like my family time. So I don't always do a lot of filming and stuff on the weekend. So that's not going to work for me. So I opted to do actual videos. So these are going to be real-time knotting. I'm going to walk you through how I set things up, how I pick my colors, the whole shebang, and then I'll walk you guys through the first few rows of the pattern in this video. And then the next video shouldn't be as long as this one, but we'll go through the next few lines after that. And kind of at the end of each section, if any of you guys have any questions from any skill level, whether it's beginner to advanced, you have any questions at all, I'll address them at the start of the next part instead of like a normal tutorial where I would breeze through the whole thing, speed up, cut things out, and then just answer your questions in the comments. This way, I feel like you guys can see how much actually goes into making these, like how much adjusting and stuff like that I'm doing behind the scenes that I actually cut out, because I do feel like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just, you're knotting so perfect. Like that's just like, I don't know how you do it, but I don't think people realize just how much I manipulate my strings. And, I just thought it would be fun to actually sit down, do a real-time knotting video and interact with you guys a little more maybe. So if you guys like this video, this kind of concept, let me know and maybe we can do some more of them in the future. But I thought we would start with this kind of a fun little one because I've never done a wall hanging tutorial before. So there you go. That's kind of what this is going to be. So right now I'm still just attaching my base strings to my shish kebab skewer using the lark's head knot. So again, I fold those strings in half and then I kind of like stick my pointer finger and my thumb in the top part of the folded string. I open them up so it's like almost like a triangle, like I'm holding the loose ends in the other hand. And then I just twist my fingers and my thumb down, which creates a loop around my finger and a loop around my thumb. and then I pull them together so I have this loop that I can feed my stick through. And then you'll see there's kind of a side that has, like I showed you there, like ridges from where the string is like looped around, and the other side doesn't have any. Now you guys can choose, it's up to you which side you would prefer to have facing forward, whether you would like those notches of white at the top there. Hi PG, everyone say hi. Otherwise, it's totally up to you. I've done them both ways. It doesn't really make much of a difference. I do find if you're putting that loop towards the back, sometimes you do have to push your knots up a little bit because you don't realize that that string is there, or the base string maybe isn't quite super tight or something. But it doesn't make a difference which way you have face up. So whatever you prefer. And we're almost done putting our strings on here. And like, this is really slow, but I'm super dedicated to going through the entire process. So if you are a little more advanced and you don't need this guidance for putting the strings on, then please feel free to skip ahead. Otherwise, I want this to kind of be accessible for as many people as possible. So here we are. And this is our last string, I do believe, which will give us 30 base strings, which makes this a perfect pattern for a wall hanging because we don't have to adjust any base string numbers to make it even. It's already even. Now I'm going to tape this down to the table. I opted to push my strings closer to one end of the stick because I'll just trim it and use the other part of the stick for my next wall hanging. And I just figured that was the easiest way to do it. I already have a flat edge on one side. So I only have to cut one side. Does that make sense? I don't even know anymore. Anyways, let's pick some colors. So obviously for this, we're going to use a black for the background. Now I have two different blacks. I'm going to go ahead and use this DMC. It is slightly shinier. I don't know if that really picks up on the camera super well, but the DMC black is a little bit more shiny. So I'm going to use that because why not? And then let's look at this green. So this apple is kind of dripping in this green poison. It honestly kind of reminds me of a candy apple. I'm not gonna lie, like a reverse candy apple. So I'm thinking I'm looking at my greens here, and this bright green I'm thinking is almost a little too bright. Like I feel like it's kind of closer to this other green here, but more like in between the two, which I just don't have. So I think we're gonna go probably with this like lime green, and we need like a shadow color or an outline color, and I just don't think this middle green is going to have enough contrast when they're knotted and beside each other. So I think I'm probably going to go for this dark green because that's going to give us more the outlined shadowed effect, I think, than the middle green would against that lime green. Now this is where things got a little more complicated, is the apple is red. And I really don't have a lot of red in this pack. I think there was like 3 different shades really. And as you can see, there's like one that's a little bit orangey and one that's kind of scarlet. And they're just kind of, there isn't a lot of contrast between them. So if I knotted them together, you probably wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. But then this like maroon burgundy is almost too dark and not like more of a wine tone than like a red tone. So I don't know whether I should use this medium red and the burgundy or whether I should use the bright red and the burgundy. And I think the bright red and the burgundy, the tones would just be a little bit off because this is like kind of the shadow effect. And there's just not enough contrast between the other two. So I think I'm going to go with these two, the darker red and then the burgundy, because I don't have just a plain dark red. Next for the stem, again, there's not a lot of brown options. There's kind of this brown that you see at the top of my box and then this kind of yellowy, goldy brown color. And I think, quite honestly, this brown at the top, when it's knotted against the black, it's not really going to stand out. And I feel like you're going to see like the apple vividly and the stems just kind of blend into the background. So I think I'm actually going to go more for this yellow toned, orangey yellow toned brown for the stem, because I want it to stand out as much as the rest of the apple, if that makes sense. Anyways, I'd be interested to know if you guys picked different colors. Like, I think the whole effect of this apple would change if you did like a green apple with a red dripping. I feel like it wouldn't really look like a poison apple anymore. I'd be interested to see if anyone does that, how it turns out. That'd be pretty cool, I think. Anyways, we're gonna cut our black background string here and just tape it down. I'm gonna start on the left hand side of my wall hanging. And that's just because I like to read the grid pattern, and I like to read it left to right, so it's easier for me to remember like where I'm at. So I'm just going to tape this down, and then we're going to start knotting. So our first row of this pattern is just a solid black row, which is actually really nice. For the start of this, we can really just not worry about color changes or anything, just get a solid straight row in first. So I'm going to go ahead, and because we're working left to right, I'm going to do forwards knots all the way across the top and adjust as I go. Now, I always say this, so I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point. But if you ever find a mistake when you're knotting or see something that doesn't look quite right, you should always stop and manipulate it, because once you put 1 or 2 more knots in, all you've done is solidify its spot and not actually fix the issue. So I'm going to take my time and make sure this first row is really straight. It is going to be greatly assisted already by knotting against the stick, but yeah, just take your time here. This first row is really going to set up how the rest of your lines look. So take your time here. Whether it's a bracelet or a tapestry, your first couple rows are going to set up the entire status of your bracelet. If you start off with crooked line, the rest of your lines are going to be crooked, and it's going to be much harder to salvage out to straight lines. So anyways, moving on to just forward knots. So I'm going to let this play, obviously real-time knotting, as you guys can see. But let's chat about life a little, shall we? What's going on in my world? Well, the car situation finally got finished. For those of you who watch my videos regularly, you know what's up. For those of you who are new here or maybe don't watch all of my videos, the start of August, my car was in an accident and got rode off. Everyone was okay. No one was injured. Everyone was fine. But my car got rode off. It took about 2 months to finally get that all settled. And I just now finally, like 2 weeks ago, got myself a new vehicle to replace it. So I'm super, super excited about that. And quite honestly, I love my new vehicle much more than my old one. Kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise. It was really stressful to go through that whole situation, but I really wasn't enjoying that car that I had before. So I'm really happy that, kind of secretly happy that it's gone and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's nice. It was a bummer that I was almost done paying it off though, because I would have liked to have gone without car payments for a while, but c'est la vie, that's life, and that's how it's gonna be. If you know that song, props. Throwback. Other than that, what else is new? I don't think anything too crazy's happened here. We've got snow. It's almost Halloween, hence the reason we're doing this Halloween not along. Yeah, that's about, I don't think there's really anything too exciting going on here. I don't think I really have any drama to share or anything. I've just been trying to knot away, and oh my gosh, there was a long gap in uploads there for a while, and I don't think I really addressed it fully in my last video, but it was because of my last video. I had done a pack of like string organization was our video before last, I think. I don't even remember. The string organization video put me behind like 2 weeks because I fully expected it to take me like, I don't know, 5 days to wind all that thread, and it took me 2 weeks. 2 weeks, guys. And I didn't want to waste time knotting. I wanted to finish it and get that video done and have all those strings knotted. So I just didn't upload for 2 weeks. I'm sure some of you were like, oh, this again, what the heck? But we're back now. And my idea behind this series is that I'll upload this first chunk of this wall hanging, and I'll let it marinate for probably, I'm thinking 2 days. And then I'll come back and answer any questions and kind of adjust the series based on that. So if you guys want more just less talking and more just music and watching, if you want more of just like the sounds of bracelet knotting, I might be able to put some of that in. To be quite honest, I was watching some Netflix while I was doing this because why not? I had all the devices here. I started watching Merlin. I'm only like 2 episodes in. I haven't watched a ton, but I'd never watched it before, and it showed up in my recommended, and I was like, I've heard good things about this. So if you've watched Merlin, please no spoilers, but if you've watched Merlin, is it good? Let me know. So far I've enjoyed like the 2 episodes I've watched, but interested to know if it's worth investing my time in. So let me know what your thoughts are on that, and if you have any other Netflix recommendations, also let me know those down below, because I feel like now I have an extra device on hand because my daughter grandma sent her a tablet because my iPad was like dying. Like, it's old, but it still does what I want it to do, which is display bracelet book patterns and run an old version of Netflix. So I can like watch videos on that and use my old phone to show me the pattern, or vice versa. So it's nice now that I can like actually watch stuff, like watch a movie or, you know, watch YouTube videos or something while I knot and record. Like, knotting in dead silence is so not motivating. So not motivating. Which brings up another thing. What do you guys do for motivation when you're knotting? Audiobooks? Watch something? Let me know down below. Leave your suggestions for everyone else. Okay, so now we're moving on to our next row here. And the next row is going to be 6, 9, 12, 13 black knots. So that's going to be backwards knots because we're working right to left. So 13 knots in our black. And then we're going to do our first introduction to color. Our first color is going to be introduced then. So, heading along here. Yeah. So, Netflix recommendations. Whatever you guys think. Recently, like I mentioned this in my Q&A, like string organization video, I've watched The Umbrella Academy, the first season. I haven't really watched any of the second season. Sense8 was great. The Witcher was great. I watched the first season of Sabrina and never actually got around to the second season of that. Maybe I should catch up on those too. But if you guys have recommendations, I particularly like fantasy, then let me know. For sure. Same as audiobooks. If you guys have any really good audiobooks, let me know that as well. So now we're looking at adding in our first color. So that's going to be our stem. So I've cut my orangey brown color here, and I'm just going to tape it in. Now at this point, taping it under the stick, we're too high up. It will make your knotting very, very difficult and awkward. So I am going to tape this above the stick still, just as if I was starting, or when I did start at the beginning here. And I think I'm going to do a flat alpha color change. I always walk you guys through a normal color change, so we'll do some flat alpha ones in this one. So I'm going to put my brown string underneath all of my base strings and come up where I have finished off knotting with my black. I'm going to do half of a backwards knot, so the first half of the backwards knot over the next base string that I want to be in my stem color. And then I'm going to flip the black back down, and over top of that base string I just did my half knot on and under the rest of the base strings. And then I'm going to finish out my color change by closing off the second half of that backwards knot with the stem color, and then I'm going to proceed to do another backwards knot with the stem color. Now I'm going to color change back to our background color, so I'm going to drop my brown color where it is and pull my black string back in where I stopped knotting. I'm going to pull out the next base string, and I'm going to do a half backwards knot with my black string over that base string. And then I'm going to bring that stem knot across that base string I just did my half knot on and underneath the rest of my base strings. And I find you want to pull it up quite a bit so that it stays even and your knot doesn't turn wonky. Then you're going to do the second half of your backwards knot on that same base string, effectively tying that brown color in the middle. And then we're going to carry on the rest of the row with our black string, doing backwards knots because we're working right to left, all the way to the end. All right, so I suppose this is a Halloween themed wall hanging, mini wall hanging. How do you guys feel about Halloween? Like, are you just here because you're like, ooh, funky poison apple, like Snow White vibes? Or are you here because like spooky Halloween vibes? Do you even like Halloween? Does everyone even celebrate Halloween? I don't think all the countries in the world celebrate Halloween. Like, in fact, I know a couple countries don't. But I think it's becoming like more widespread. Like, I think more people are having like Halloween parties and costume parties and stuff around the world on this date, but maybe not necessarily, like, I don't think it's necessarily recognized as Halloween. Does that make sense? Anyways, let me know down below if that is the case with your country. If you are in like North America here, where we definitely celebrate Halloween, what are your plans for this Halloween? Because 2020 has been a ride. I'm not sure what we're doing here. Halloween falls on a Saturday this year, so I'm not even sure I'm going to dress up or anything. Like, sometimes I dress up or do my makeup up for work, but I'm not going to be working. And then the whole question of like trick-or-treating, I don't know if we're going to do that. And to be quite honest, like, my daughter's so young, I don't know that she'll even know that she's missed out on something. So I don't know whether I should even like bother getting them, like spending the money and stuff to get her a costume. Or maybe I should get her a costume and we just go to like a couple houses on the street. I don't know. She shouldn't even be eating the candy. She's not even 2 yet. So I don't know. It would be cute for pictures though if she had like a little costume. I don't know. Let me know down below what your guys' plans are for this Halloween. Now we're going to turn around and we're going to do the next row. And this is kind of how I do my alphas. I don't actually count out all the knots. I go, okay, I counted out this first row. Now I'm going to base everything off of that first color change. So I'm going to split out my next brown knot is introduced on the same base string as the previous row. So I'm going to do black forwards knots until I reach that same base string. And generally I'll like split my strings in half, so when I can just kind of mindlessly knot until I reach that like break in the base strings and know that's when I need to pay attention and switch my colors. So I'm going to go ahead and do these forwards knots here. And as you can see, I'm like picking out a fluff here. I'm adjusting, like everything is looking pretty straight and really nice so far. Actually, I'm super excited to see how this turns out. So, you know. Anyways, if you are dressing up for Halloween, what are you guys dressing up as? What are your costume ideas? I don't even know. I think if I dress my daughter up, we'll probably do like Rapunzel from Tangled because she loves that movie. I think that's probably the easiest bet because I feel like I literally saw a Rapunzel princess dress at like Independent, like the grocery store the other day. So I feel like that would be fairly easy, or just get her like a long purple dress and then probably like braid yarn into her hair or something to give her like a cute little Rapunzel braid, or do Cinderella because she's blonde, you know, like a princess or something because she loves the Disney movies. I thought about doing something like that, but again, I'm just really not sure. As for me, like before last year, I was kind of thinking maybe I would do like a princess this year. Like I could do Elsa and my daughter could be Anna, or vice versa. I thought that could be kind of fun, but I really don't want to invest the money in my own costume because that would be expensive to dress up and not go anywhere, and then probably not want to be the same thing next year. You know what I mean? Do you guys reuse your Halloween costumes? There's another good question. In the past, I always got like cheap costumes, so I didn't really do that. But one year I made my costume and it was really nice, and I wore it the next year too because I took the time to make it really nice and like durable. So do you guys reuse your Halloween costumes, or do you just kind of one and done with them? Let me know. We're going to do another color change here. So I'm going to do half of a forwards knot with our stem color, and then I'm going to pull the black string down over top of that base string that we just did our half knot on, and sandwiching that black string in the middle, I'm going to finish off on that base string with another half forwards knot with that stem color. And we need 3 knots in this color, so I'm going to do 2 more forwards knots with our stem color. So here we go, 2. And I'm going to adjust this black and this gold a lot to try and make the color change peek through as little as possible. That's one thing I'm still not 100% sure on with the flat alpha change, is that little bit of color peeking through. I'm trying to perfect that and minimize it as much as possible before I really decide whether I super like this technique or not. But here we go, we're going to switch back. So I did half of my forwards knot with the black string. Then I pulled my gold string down and across that to be sandwiched in with the second half of our black knot, effectively covering up that gold or stem color, whatever you have or are using. And I'm going to pull it, I find pulling it as horizontal and like upwards as possible seems to make the knot more even, and also seems to make the colors poke through less. That's kind of been my experience so far. Also use a half decent string, because if your string frays, thins, or stretches at all, it makes the knots really wonky and it doesn't look cute. That was my problem when I first tried the flat alpha color change technique. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking for a bit and we're going to finish out this row with these forwards knots with our background color. All right, so now we're looking at our next row, and I'm going to take my time and make sure this first row, or not the first row, but the third row, the row we just finished, is as straight as possible. Now looking at my stem is going to come out to the right one more knot than the previous row. So I've sectioned that out already and taken one extra string that was previously a black knot to the right of our last stem section in our last row there. And I'm going to knot all the way up to that point, doing just backwards knots with our black string because we are working right to left as usual. And my throat is a little bit sore right now, so we're going to listen to some more music and we'll meet back up when we reach the stem section again. All right, now we're looking at color switching again. So I'm going to push my black string upwards. I'm not going to tuck it under first, just upwards. I'm going to pull my stem color, that gold color, back in underneath up to where we stopped knotting with the black. I'm going to do half of a backwards knot on this next base string. Then I'm going to pull my black string down over top of the stem color, that gold string I just did the half knot with. I'm going to fold that across the top of that half knot, tuck that string underneath the other base strings, and finish the other half of the backwards knot with our stem color. Now we're going to do 3 knots with this color, so I'm going to do 2 more backwards knots on the next 2 base strings here, and then we're going to do another color switch back to the background color. All right, so now we're going to do another color change. So we're going to pull this black in where we stopped knotting, and we're going to do half of a backwards knot over the next base string. Then I'm going to take my stem color, I'm going to pull it down over top of that black and tuck it across and underneath all of my base strings there, pulling it up a bit so that it's a little more completely horizontal and even, so my knots are more even. Then I'm going to finish that other half of the backwards knot with my black string, effectively making that color change finished and sandwiching that stem color in the middle there, so it's supposedly a little more flat. Then I'm going to finish out this row, again just doing backwards knots with our black color. right, now we're going to start our next row back, and this is going to be the farthest wide our stem goes. So it's going to go in one more from the left than it did previously. So we're going to do our forwards back knots, what even? Our forwards knots, because we're working from the left to the right, and we're going to, as I have done already, sectioned in one more under that stem. So I have sectioned out my strings, so I have pulled one base string that was previously a stem color, and that will bend our stem out and give it that really crooked look that the top of this poison apple has. I think this is going to look so good when it's done, guys. I'm super, super excited about this. I saw this pattern and I knew we had to do it, and I really wanted to do like a Halloween video this year, so I thought this was fitting. I thought it was like perfectly spooky and just cute. I've never done a wall hanging tutorial on my channel before, and I feel like a lot of people maybe need some guidance on it because it's not something they've tried before and they just don't really know where to start. So I thought this would be a fun experience to do it together as a group. And like I said, this way I feel like it's a little more back and forth, so it's maybe a little more accessible to more of a beginner level audience as well, because if they have any questions before the video just goes on and the bracelet's done, you have a chance to ask your question and I'll answer it in the comments. So if you have a question, I'll answer it in the comments and in the video, so you have a chance to kind of remedy your problem, and then you can start watching the second part. But if you guys think a live video would be better, let me know and maybe I'll be able to figure something out. Just know it might be like a later night live video. Anyways, we're going to switch back to our stem color. So I've pushed that black string up, brought the gold string in to the next base string. I did half of a forwards knot. Then I'm going to pull the black string down across that knot I just did, tuck it under the base strings, and then use our stem color to complete the second half of the forwards knot. Then I'm going to carry on as normal with three, we want 3 knots all together, so our second forwards knot and a third forwards knot before we do yet another color change. So here is 3. Now I'm going to push that string up. I'm going to make sure everything is looking nice and even and beautiful before I do this color change, because once I do the color change, if I had any issues with the color change previously with colors poking through, I'm not going to be able to fix them. So I'm going to do half a forwards knot with that black string. Then I'm going to pull the stem color down and across the top of that half knot. And then I'm going to tie the second half of that forwards knot over top of that string I just folded across. So you want to make sure that's as horizontal as possible, because if it's at all drooping down, it's going to make your knot become more elongated or larger than the other knots in the row, which you don't want. That's going to make the rest of your lines wonky, and it's just going to be a ripple effect. Now we're going to finish out this row with just the black forwards knots, as we've been doing. I promise this is going to get a little more interesting. Once we start the apple, we'll have a lot of color changes and stuff throughout the rest of this series. This is probably the most tedious and probably the longest video of this series, because I did go through the full setup. I'm hoping to do just like 3 or 4 parts of just like pure knotting all together. So I'm not sure how many lines we'll do each part. You guys let me know. Would you rather it be like a half-hour thing where we sit down a few times, just half hour at a time? Would you rather it be like 45 minutes, an hour, and just see how much we get done? Or would you rather do a set amount of lines? Really kind of like, I have the general idea of what I want this concept in this series to be, but I want to know what works best for you guys, because I think that's where I think that this is the most ideal. you know, rather than compared to a tutorial, because a regular tutorial, I'd be fast forwarding through all these parts where you'd see it in like a time lapse, which isn't necessarily as effective for a beginner. So let me know what you guys think. Also, would you prefer like more music, less talking, more chatty stuff, more not? Kind of let me know. Anyways, we're knotting right up to the same stem knot as before, except we're going to do 4 knots across, which is going to give the stem now the appearance that it's like crooked, that it's got kind of that that angle in it that gives it, I just add something where it just makes it look kind of creepy. It reminds me of like the branches of like the dead trees that you always see in like the evil woods in the movies. Anyways, we're doing a color change now. Grabbing our stem color, I've done half of our backwards knot. I've pulled my previous knotting string down across that and tucked it behind the other base strings and finished out my knot with the new knotting color over top of that. Then I'm going to look to do 3 more backwards knots because we're working right to left, which will effectively give us 4 knots in our stem color. Now that we have 4, we're going to do another color change. So I'm going to pull the black down right into the spot where we stopped knotting. I'm going to knot half of a backwards knot over that base string. Then I'm going to fold the stem color down over top of that half knot and tuck the other end under the other base strings we haven't knotted under yet. And then I'm going to finish off the second half of that knot, effectively sandwiching that color change in there. I'm going to adjust, get the fluffs out. I thought it was part of a base string, then I realized it was a fluff, and I was like, oh no, I need to straighten this. I didn't need to, it's just a fluff. Then we're going to finish this row out with just backwards knots in our black color. And then finally, our next row is going to introduce some color, and I am so excited. Now I'm about to do something kind of a little bit different, and I wanted to show you guys. So I just untaped the original tail from where I tied in our background string, and because it's right on the edge, I'm actually going to pull it in and tie our knotting string around it with the next base string. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see this knot, but what that's going to do is it's not going to leave me with an awkward string to figure out what to do with, and it's not going to end up like trimmed off as an awkward tuft on the side. It's going to effectively pull that string into the back of the work so that we don't see it at the side, and it gives our wall hanging a nice clean look on its edges. Then I'm just going to do it the one time because I don't feel like it needs to be done excessively with this particular pattern. Sometimes on a bracelet, if it's still like really pulling because it's right out at the edge, I might do it for a couple a couple rows, I'll knot over that same spot, just to make sure that's really solidified in there. But because this is going to be hanging on a wall and it's not going to get a lot of actual wear and tear, I'm not too concerned about how easily that may or may not pull out. And I think the one knot will be strong enough on its own. I am also trying to use as much of my black as possible and waste as little as possible, because we all know black string goes so fast. So excuse how derpy this looks, but I am trying to use as much of it as possible, okay? Because every time I go to Walmart in town, there's never any black thread left in the single skeins, and I don't go to the city enough to get black string as soon as I need it. So I am going to obnoxiously use every last bit of this that I can, no matter how awkward it is. Are you like this too? What about you guys? Do you try to use as much as possible, or are you pretty careless with it? Like other colors, I don't care so much. I'm kind of like, okay, like whatever. Like this golden color I normally use as like base strings because I don't really use it for a lot. But anyways, we've got as far as we can get with that one, so I'm going to cut some more black and add it in. Some of you guys have asked me in the past what to do if you run out of your background string. Just treat it like any other color change. It's just the same color as your previous knotting string. So I opt to do this rather than knot with a bobbin or looping my thread into like a ball or whatever, simply because I find the bobbin or the like packet of string, if you wrap it all up, just slows down my knotting a lot. So I prefer to work with just a shorter string and change the strings in more often and just work on having clean color changes, as opposed to working with a bobbin. It literally drives me nuts. Now, one of you guys actually messaged me and suggested I try using like a little sewing machine bobbin, and I wonder if that might be a little bit easier because they're generally a little bit more rounded and they're also smaller, so I could keep my loop smaller. So I may try that, but experience tells me I probably won't like it. But anyways, in this case, this row, we're doing forwards knots here with our black for 8 knots. And then we are going to introduce some green. So we have done 5 knots. This is 6. And 7. And finally, we have 8. And now it's time to bring in our first green color. Now this first green color that we see, other than the stem color, is actually the dark green color. So unlike the stem color, I am going to pull a fair length of this off because it is going to be used quite a bit in this pattern. And I'm probably going to cut it the same length I do for my black, which is wingspan. That's generally my go-to knotting length. I find anything much longer gets tangled and anything shorter just disappears too quick. So we're going to switch this in, and I'm going to tape this down, I think, to the right side of the project here, or rather, no, the left side, sorry, because I'm working left to right. It's going to be easier to bring that knot in, but we're not quite long enough yet to just tape it underneath. Again, we'd have that weird like pulling the string upwards. So I'm going to tape it in sideways along the side of the work, I think, which is a little bit odd. I don't normally do that, but yeah, we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to take my green string now, and I'm going to pull it up underneath into where we had just stopped knotting. And on that first base string, I'm going to do half of a forwards knot. Now, as you can see, because it's pulling in from the side and not like within the bracelet, it's getting caught up on that previous black knot. So I'm really just having to work with it to get it where I want it to be, so my knot is nice and even. And sometimes this is really a struggle. You got to like tighten it and then pull the base string out because it starts to get like pinched under the black, or your previous knot rather, not necessarily a black in every pattern, but We're going to pull that black string down and across that half knot, and then finish it off finally with the other half of that forwards knot with that beautiful green color, effectively sandwiching that color change in the knot. Now we're going to do, we want 5 knots all together, so we're going to do 4 more forwards knots because we're working left to right with our darker green color. I cannot wait, guys. I think this is going to look so good. Oh, I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited. Now we want to do a color change back to our background color for 2 knots. So we're going to push our green string up to the top and pull our black string in underneath where we stopped knotting. And we're going to do half of a forwards knot on that bass string. Then we're going to pull the green string down and across the top of that knot and tuck it under the rest of the bass strings. Then we can use our black string and finish the second half of that forwards knot, effectively sandwiching the color change within the knot, which is what makes it more flat. Then we're going to do our second forwards knot to give us 2 background colors. And then we're going to do another color switch. So I'm going to push that black string to the top of my work. And then I'm going to pull in our stem color, and I'm noticing that it's gotten caught up on the new background color. So I'm just kind of fishing it out here. Otherwise, we're going to have some weird wonky loops on the back and a lot of wasted string for no reason. So fishing that out, we can see that it really didn't need to carry all the way over there. Surprise. And we're going to resume our color change. So pulling that stem color into where our next knot is going to be, we're going to use it to do half of a forwards knot, so our 4 shape, and we're going to pull it tight once. Then we're going to take our black color, which was our previous knotting color, we're going to put it across the top of that half knot and then tuck it underneath the rest of the bass strings. Then we can use our new knotting string, that stem color, finish the second half of that knot, and it kind of hides the color change within the knot. Now we're going to do 4 more forwards knots with this stem color. And then we can finish out the row with just our background color again. So here we go. This is 4 and 1 more. That's 5. And now we are going to do a color change again. So I'm going to push my stem color up to the top of my work and pull the black string in underneath my work. I'm going to do half of a forwards knot on the next bass string, making sure it's nice and cozy up to the row above. Then I'm going to pull that stem color back down. I'm going to lay it over top of that half knot and underneath the rest of the bass strings as horizontal as I can get it. Then I'm going to pull that black string down and do the second half of that forwards knot, which effectively covers that string that was laid horizontally across it. And we're going to finish out the row with just forwards knots in our background color, which for me is black. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I really want to see these two greens next to each other. So we're going to do one more line, and then I think we're going to call it a day. So working right to left, we're going to take our background color in until 3 before the rightmost side of our last row's stem color. So that equates to being 7 black knots. So I've done 3 here. Here is 4. And 5. Distracted by what I'm watching. 6. And then finally 7. And now we can do our color change to our dark green. So I'm going to push that black string up to the top of my work, pull our dark string in underneath our base strings into that same spot where we just stopped knotting. And I'm going to do a backwards knot with my green string over the next base string because we are working right to left. And I'm going to do half of that backwards knot. Then I'm going to bring that black string down. I'm going to pass it over top of that half knot and tuck it underneath the rest of my base strings. Then I'm going to grab that green string and finish the rest of that backwards knot, effectively making a sandwich in there. Untangle any knots that come up at the end of your string, like I did there. I didn't bore you with that process. Then we're going to do 3 more backwards knots with this dark green color before we switch out for our stem color. So altogether you should have 4 of your dark green knots here. So 3 and 4. Now I'm going to push this green string to the top of my work, and I'm going to pull the stem color in underneath the base strings into that spot where we just stopped knotting. And I'm going to do half of a backwards knot onto the next base string, fold that green string down across that half knot and then underneath the rest of the base strings, and finish out that backwards knot with the stem color sandwiching in that color change. Now I want 5 brown knots altogether, so we're going to do 4 more backwards knots with our stem color. And then we're going to switch to our dark green again. So there's 3 and 4 and 1 more here. And that's 5. Now I'm going to leave that string at the top of my work and pull in our dark green string. It's going to do a backwards knot over the next base string. And as you do, we're going to fold that stem color down over top of that half knot and then underneath the rest of the base strings, and then finish our backwards knot with that green color, sandwiching in that stem color to the middle of the knot. Now we're going to go ahead and just do another color change, introducing our bright green. Oh, I think this is gonna look so good. I've said that like a million times in this video, but I am super, super pumped about it. I think it's going to look mwah, chef's kiss, okay? It's gonna look good, guys. So I'm going to tape in this lime green string, and again we're looking at the fact that this tapestry isn't quite long enough for me to tape it directly underneath right where I need it. So I am going to just tape it at the side again. I'm going to tape it on the right hand side so I just don't have everything coming in from the one side. It doesn't get too busy over there. And I am going to pull that lighter green, that lime green string in where we stopped knotting. I'm going to do half of a backwards knot over the next base string. And again, because this is a new string being introduced, I am going to have to pull and play with it so it doesn't get caught on the previous knots, or try to pull the base string underneath to where the new knotting string is coming from. Then I'm going to fold the old knotting string over top of that half knot we just did and tuck the rest of it underneath the base strings. And then grabbing that lighter green color again, I'm going to finish that backwards knot we already did half of and effectively lock that darker green color in. Now I want 4 more forwards knots for a total of 5 of our lime green knots. And you guys saw how that darker green string kind of sunk down, and I really had to manipulate this color change to get the knot to be as round and the same size as the other ones. So definitely try to make it as horizontal as possible and even pull it upwards a bit if you can. It will really help you in the long run. All right, so there's 4, and here we go for 5. And then we're going to do a color change into our dark green color. So we're going to leave this light green to the top of the work. And we're going to pull the dark green color in underneath our work. We're going to do half of a backwards knot with our dark green color. And then we're going to pull the lighter green color in. We're going to lay it across the half knot we just did, and then tuck the string underneath the rest of your base strings. And then we're going to grab our dark green string and complete our backwards knot, doing the second half effectively with that light green string knotted into the middle of it. Now we need to do one more dark green knot here, so just a backwards knot. And we're going to do one final color switch for this row. So I'm going to push that dark green to the top of my work, and we're going to pull in the black string, our background color, underneath here. You know, this would look really cool with a purple background too, I think, like a royal, nice, deep purple. Anyways, we're going to pull that black string in, and we're going to do half of a backwards knot with it, as we've been doing for all of our color changes. And then we're going to take that dark green color and fold it across the half knot we just did and tuck it underneath the rest of the base strings. Then we're going to take our background color and we're going to finish that half knot, half backwards knot, and sandwich that string in there. Then we're going to finish out the row with just backwards knots with our background color. Alright guys, and this is where we're going to leave it off for the day. You can see now how if we had used that medium green instead of the lime green, or vice versa, there really wouldn't have been a lot of contrast between the two. So I'm happy we chose the colors we did for the green anyways, and I think the stem looks really good too. So let me know what you guys thought about this. I think we're going to let this marinate for like 2 days. I feel like a day won't be enough because I feel like not everyone can sit and watch the video as soon as it comes out. So this is it for today. I'm going to let this marinate, I think, for 2 days. We're going to do 2 days, and then I'll post the second part. So if you have questions, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video or you like this concept, leave your thoughts and comments on it down below as well. And if you did enjoy it, just give it a big old thumbs up. And until next time, guys, bye.